I have seen things fly that are not earthly, and I suppose that they are from other dimensional planes or other worlds.
I definitely had more than enough anomalous experiences to know that these things are real and they're just another part of the universe.
And if you look on the History Channel, Discovery Channel, you'll see programs all the time about unidentified flying objects, all the time.
For a while, I was one of those people who were like, why don't they just come out and tell the world? Why don't they just come out and tell the public? There's a reason. People really don't want the realities altered. As I was walking up, I kept looking through his trees because he had a bunch of trees in the front area blocking view of his house. And I looked up, and then I noticed the lights started moving. And then I was sitting there still trying to peer through the trees, and I started backing up towards the center of the road because it was just coming right up and over. And then it started raising up, and I think it got maybe 300 to 500 feet. That's my estimate. And I didn't realize how big this thing was. I was just looking at the light, and then the next thing I remember was it came directly above me. And I'm sitting there looking up at this thing. It had no sound, no nothing, and then it shoots on a different set of lights that goes all the way around it. And that's when I realized I was looking at something not that was this big, but something that spanned from that spot way over to that spot. I talked to the farmer probably about a week later, and one of the details, by the way, of what had happened there is when it shut on, or when it turned on those triangular graded lights, all the farm animals went completely ballistic. They went insane. So I went there and asked him, I said, did you notice anything, slightly out of the ordinary around 12:30 at night? And he said, yeah, well, my animals were going crazy. And I said, well, kind of talked with him about it, and he had a discussion, and he goes, well, nothing surprises me. I've seen that stuff around here before. The military itself got involved in the situation. They circled my home quite frequently. Here we go again. Different spot. Very low. There you go. Right there you go. Very low. Black military helicopter. They just keep coming and coming and coming. Would park black SUVs outside the back of my house and sit there for hours, take off. Sometimes they would actually follow me and my girlfriend, to locations and stuff like that. We actually kind of got used to it after about a half a year.
I want you to see how close these two are getting to each other. See that?
That's strange.
Right there. Then you go over here a little bit, and we got one right there.
And Stephen Greer brought 20 witnesses that testified before the National Press Club and said, we will go before a joint session of Congress and we will make public full disclosure on UFOs. We will tell you everything about them. We have movies, we have films, we have all the available evidence to prove to you that they exist and so on. And we want to do that now. And you know what happened? Just shortly thereafter, 9/11 happened. There were already like 75 senators and congressmen that had signed up. We want this to occur. We're going to make it happen. Full disclosure now. And as soon as 9/11 happened, everybody forgot all about flying saucers. We had somebody to hate in common. Have you investigated whether that was a put-up job, 9/11? That's fascinating. You got to look into that too.
There are cover-ups going on. I understand why there's cover-ups going on. The majority of at least Americans are stupid. If they thought that something, this was tried out back in the 30s, Orson Welles. He read the H.G. Wells' novel over the airwaves and people flipped.
They didn't know how to explain it because they didn't have a cosmology that included understanding life from other worlds and visiting, and what are we going to do about this? And the other thing is, there was a strong suspicion that these might be Russian craft. Maybe the Russians knew more than we did.
As far as the crafts go, they came probably in every shape and size that you could think of. The biggest one I ever saw was probably about the size of Bill Armstrong Stadium, and I saw that up close. and there was slight interaction there. And then many of the other ones, the footage itself tells a story. Stuff would pop up, or we would go out on the highway, which I always thought was really strange, because what we had tried to do is go from the highway to get to another remote location, but they would show up right on the highway.
It's going straight for it, too.
Everything you love about regular dude. Great new taste and no calories. So once again, Club Super Fun.
They don't give it. He's moving laterally, dude.
Not just diet, it's outdoors.
He's moving laterally, just sideways.
Taste of Diet Mountain
Okay,
Dew.
this
Buy
thing
4
that's over to
12
the
packs
right,
of Mountain Dew
something went right
brand.
underneath of it.
Just one 12-pack of Diet Mountain Dew and get $5 back by
That's
mail.
no
Offer
helicopter.
valid through March 20th.
And there's all kinds of plans that have been made to scare the hell out of the public, you know, and to create an artificial war to make us fear people out there. Why? Because it makes it very convenient to establish a one world government. If you frighten the hell out of everybody, then you can make everybody do what you want them to, coalesce them.
You got to think about the type of technology that they have that can take them from point A to point B millions of light years away. We're still doing it on jet propulsion. They're doing it on anti-gravity energy waves.
Oh my God. Do you see what I'm seeing? Wow.
Look at it in that perspective. Those guys, and all they are is a stronger, more developed civilization than we are. We're working our ways up to those paths as it is right now. There's life from other places. They figured out energy systems that we have not figured out. You know, I think one of the biggest times that we were seeing UFO activity in America is during the 1950s, during the Cold War, when we were working with the atomic bomb, all sorts of other things. They started coming down. They were checking that stuff out.
One time, John called somebody and said, "There's 23 UFOs hovering over the nuclear reactor. Hurry over here with your camera," you know.
Well, there's a man in town that I had the privilege of knowing, and his name was John, and he's kind of famous. He was harassed by the government. He had a family, and he had a lot of friends who had the same experiences too. So, but John was like, to me, a UFO magnet. He remembers being abducted about 3 or 4 times, and he had like implants according to him, and he would take a baby monitor and it would go off. He consciously recalls one event where he was down at a place we call the farm, and it was like snowing out, and he was filming UFOs because these things would appear and he wanted to understand what they were, and his window went down. He was like paralyzed. While he was filming, something on the camera, like a red corkscrew beam, went into his arm. And you can see it on the film or through his window. And he's got more films of like lights in the sky or UFOs than I know of. And he was taken up and into a craft and put on a table and examined by about 4 little grays and then taller beings that kind of had more insect-looking appearance, and they were stronger. And when he was hyperventilating and feeling like he was, you know, one of the Greys put their hands over his head and calmed him down. And he survived it. He describes like the light technology and how they turned him and what they did. And he got back home and his wife didn't know where he was. And I think it was like Christmas Eve or something. And 4 hours later, and he didn't know where he'd been. And he looked in the mirror and somehow he saw like his eyes with alien eyes, little black things. And it kind of triggered it when he looked in the mirror, and it just came back to him in a flood.
Abductions, or abductees will say that they come down, they put implants in, they do this and that. What is it that we do anytime we're trying to understand one of the species on our Earth? We go down there, we tag them, we watch their natural habitat, you know, watch them interact in their natural habitat. They learn things. They don't, you know, we don't really hurt any of the things that involve that we are trying to study. We just watch them do their natural thing, and we keep an eye on them.
There's so many mysteries about our past, like the pyramids or the missing link, and what do people actually see in the sky sometimes or film. Are you ready? It's pretty simple.